Peace, everyone. Welcome back once again to Baddest Chapman Podcast. Hoping you are well. Hoping all is well with you and yours. Today, I am here with Avalon Fenster. Avalon, how are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thanks so much for having me. Any day that I get to talk with someone who I admire and respect is a great day.
Absolutely. Like the feeling is mutual, my friend. The feeling is mutual, for sure, for sure. So I want to talk to you a bit about the work you've done with Internship Girl. If you can really tell us about the inspiration behind, like, what was the story behind you starting Internship Girl?
Absolutely. So, Internship Girl is a project that I feel is the result of it was kind of always meant to be.
Mm.
It kind of came out of two things. It was my sophomore year during my winter break. I was in my bedroom at home and I kind of had this feeling, and I know you'll understand this. For months, there was a kind of voice in my head, and I always say God's voice in my life is very loud.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was kind of this voice in my head that I was meant to do something on social media. And I didn't know what it was, but I remember I kept on telling the people closest to me, I feel like I'm meant to do something on social media. I don't know what it is. And I had come off about a year stint of working for a nonprofit called Pay Our Interns, where I supported on the campaigns that got the White House and State Department to pay their interns for the first time. And so
Awesome.
I had a lot of all of that information running through my head about just early career, labor equity, the importance of young people having access to empowering resources. But I also at the same time was progressing through my early career. I
Mm.
at that point had already worked at Intel. I had been, working for the past few years in the political world. I got a very
Mhm.
early start to my career because my mother would take me starting from the age of like 12 years old to her community organizing meetings and would bring me to her protests and had me, speaking to leaders in our community and elected officials. And so from a
No
very
doubt.
young age, it was this idea of like professionalism was encouraged for me and was a priority for me. I think it also
For
has
sure.
to do with the fact that I'm a first generation American. So my parents
Mhm.
really emphasized for me the importance of going after my dreams, being disciplined. And for me, there always felt like there was a lot of meaning behind me being successful as just the
Yeah,
oldest daughter of these two immigrant parents.
no doubt.
And so it was kind of all these things happening at once. Had got this very early start in my career and I became kind of the go-to resource for my friends on, how do I do a resume? How do I do a cover letter? How do I, impress
Mm.
people in interviews? And I was also doing this work on, internship equity. And I was also having this feeling that I needed to do something on social media. And the idea just came to me. What if I started sharing on social media this information that I just have as a result of my kind of unique
Mhm.
background? And I started the platform on TikTok, and I'm very result oriented for better or for worse. So
Mm.
I said to myself, if this doesn't work in 2 weeks, if it doesn't seem like people are interested in this, then I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
And within those 2 weeks, by the end of those 2 weeks, I had 10,000 followers on TikTok. And
My
I
goodness.
noticed that 90% of them were young women between the ages of like 13 to 24.
Mhm.
And I started getting a lot of just validating comments, like these girls reaching out to me, telling me, oh, I don't have anyone else to turn to. No one else gives me this information. I have these big dreams, but I'm not really sure to execute on them. Thank you for sharing your journey. I started getting a lot of messages from girls who were from really remote areas in the country who were, saying, I know you're from, New York, so you have access to a lot of opportunities. Like, I don't. What do you suggest I do? And I think those messages were the first time that I realized that this could be something socially valuable.
For sure.
And I mean, I knew that going into it, that there's inequity in the early career space, and the more information that's
Mhm.
shared, the more equitable the results are. But I don't think until I started getting that feedback, I realized that it could be me that's doing that. I could be the
Right.
vehicle. I could be the vessel. And so it just a light bulb went off and I was like, okay, what if I make this into a real platform? What if I expand this beyond just, a TikTok page? Then I
Right.
started on Instagram and it had the same response. Within like 2 weeks, I had 10,000 followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
And not only was it the same gender breakdown, it was 90% young women, but I also started realizing that there were women from all over the world that were following me.
My
I
goodness.
have a very substantial population of young women from India who follow me, the Philippines, Malaysia, Eastern Europe, Western Africa. There's a lot
Wow,
of
wow, wow.
girls just from all over the world, from Latin
Right.
America, South America. I just started to realize that this issue is way more widespread.
No doubt.
And then I think, even the humanitarian space really talks about of this gap that
Hmm.
exists between
Hmm.
a young woman getting her education and a young woman entering the workforce.
Right.
And so I kind of realized that because of the popularity of the platform, because of how fast it was growing, because of the interest that was being showed, I really started to realize that I touched on something really important.
Absolutely.
And that's how it started. And since then, I feel so lucky. I've had the opportunity to be in rooms with leaders at the UN to talk about the issue of, early career education for young women. I've gotten to collaborate with, massive companies to share free resources. And it's been amazing. But I think for me, Internship Girl, sometimes, people like to act like the thing they have now is exactly what they thought it was going to be in the very beginning.
Right. Right. Right.
But for me, it has taken on a whole life of its own that's beyond what I ever thought, honestly, it could have turned into. So that's the long-winded version of
No, but we needed it.
how Internship Girl was started. And it's still an iterative process. I feel like it's still changing all the time.
I mean, and most things that are healthy are dynamic in that way, right? Like it can't just be because the issues of 2023 are not going to be the issues of 2027. So
100%.
how are you always evolving? That's a part of it. I don't want to be prescriptive and assume that like imposter syndrome is one of the problems that you're helping to address, but I would imagine there's a lot in my estimation when we think about institutions. There are ways that institutions communicate who belongs and who does not, right? And sometimes it's very subtle, and sometimes it's very, very overt. But what are the sort of challenges that you've heard and maybe even experienced from the folks who are using your platform, the young women who are using your platform? What are the challenges that they are facing when it comes to like internships and becoming a professional? And how do you find internship girls able to address those challenges?
Sure. So I think there's two main buckets that the challenges fit into that I've seen and heard from the girls in my community. The first, of course, is like the institutional challenge of success, going from being a student to navigating the recruiting process to getting to a company or organization that they're excited about, to then being successful in that role, to then achieving some mobility in the organization. And like the process of actually executing a career is really difficult if you don't have a playbook, because
Mhm.
no one is really telling you what to do. There's very little hand
Right.
holding. A lot of students, they maybe they have a career services office at their college, maybe they have a guidance counselor at their high school, but we, especially I would say as women, get a lot of conflicting messaging about what our role is in society, what our value is, what we should pursue, what should be important to us. And so I think that's kind of the second bucket, is sort of the internal dialogue that exists
Right.
and the more holistic personal growth challenges that are faced by
Mhm.
women that I think also really depend on the social context you live in. The women that I talk
Yeah.
to who are, Ivy League, I have a substantial portion of young women who follow me who are Ivy League students, or they go to top
Mhm.
colleges. And for them, their challenge is they're navigating very competitive recruiting processes at top banks, top firms, top organizations. Maybe they're pre-law, they're pre-med. They're already in a spot where, they have a solid educational foundation and now they're trying to get to the next step. But for a lot of young women who maybe don't have that same foundation, who are coming from very different social circumstances, who maybe live in societies or in homes where a woman's role is prescribed rather than
No doubt.
self-defined,
No doubt.
there's a much larger personal mental challenge of not only being successful, having a goal and going after it. There's the logistics of
Yeah.
that. But then there's some of the unlearning of the messaging that maybe you've been told that is
Absolutely.
required in order to get there.
Right.
I would say 90% of my success as a young person, I've been lucky to work at some of the biggest companies in the world. And for some of, most history making leaders, I've, worked in Secretary Clinton's office. I worked for the New York State Attorney General. I've worked at, big tech companies. I have been very traditionally successful, but I think 90% of my success is because of the fact that I came from a home where it was messaged to me that anything was possible for me. I came from a home where education was the foremost value for my parents. They came to the country and their families came to this country because they wanted to have access to those opportunities. I grew up never worrying about whether or not I would have food on the table or a roof over my head. I grew up in a culture where a woman having dreams for herself was acceptable. And so
Yeah.
big part of my work is not just the templates that I give or the, logistical advice I provide. It's actually showing women and also with my face, it's not a platform where I'm just sharing these templates and I'm doing these how-to guides. It's me.
Right.
Them seeing me shows them that I think they see themselves in me. And so, it's a lot more, and I feel really grateful that now people have really started to recognize that in the work that I do. That was really exciting for me, actually. When I got Forbes, it was really apparent to me that that honor wasn't about, oh, she's, has this many followers and this many brand deals. I wasn't in the social media category. I was in the education category because
There it is.
what I'm doing is really building an educational platform and filling a gap. So, there's a lot of challenges that women face. There's a lot of challenges that people in general face, but I think for me, I am happy to use my position and my, existence as a woman to maybe make it easier for other women. Maybe I'd be able to reach them better because I'm a woman speaking to them. And there's lots of men who follow me. There's lots of young men who, benefit from my advice. And it's not meant to be, my platform isn't meant to be exclusive just to women. But I would say that it speaks volumes that 90% of who follows me are women. And I think that they see something in me that makes them want to be part of the community. And I'm really grateful for that.
No doubt about it. There's a couple of things that you inspired me to address is, one, talking about that Forbes 30 under 30 recognition, being a Forbes 30 under 30 honoree. Part of that, you're absolutely right. It is educational. You are modeling. There's an old adage of people can't be what they can't see. So them seeing you as an expert, being able to speak about these things does inspire and does instill a sense of this is possible, because something I've thought about both as a parent, but also as an educator, is that, we have a responsibility to help shape people's inner voice, right? So there are people who see an opportunity, maybe it's a job listing, maybe it's an opportunity to apply for a certain degree or position. And there are some people who see that and say, that's me, I can do that. Like, it's, even if it's like, a very exclusive, not a lot of people get accepted into this sort of program, they can see themselves in it. But there are also qualified folks who see that, and because of what they've been told in the past, because of the inner voice that's largely formed by the adults in your life, up until I think age 5 or so, there are some people who see that and say, I could never do that. And I feel like we have a responsibility almost to turn people like that into the spaceships where they have to take so much energy to break free from that inner voice and really realize that the sky is the limit.
100%. I'm really with you on that. And I think there's also been a tremendous value in my platform being very collaborative between the
Yeah.
community. You scroll through my posts, you'll see that I have posts where I'm inviting young women to engage with each other in the comments and connect and find comment if they need a mentor, and for mentors to comment if they're looking for a mentee and describe the work they do, and inviting women to share their experiences in the comments. What was the most meaningful work that you've done, or what's advice that you have for another young woman who's looking to succeed. Some of my most successful posts have been, what if every young woman who saw this post shared one thing that she wishes that she knew about professional and personal success earlier. And I think, for me, it's really important that it's not about me. It was actually like, I didn't put my name on my account until 6 or 7 months in.
Gotcha.
And I think when I look to what I want the future of the platform to be, I actually would love to have other young women become the face of it, and for me to pull back. But there's so much value in just young women being able to meet each other, communicate, have a supportive kind of scaffolding as they're going through this journey that maybe they don't have in real life. Maybe they don't have friends that are, like-minded, or maybe they don't have a family that supports them, or maybe they have, like you're saying, this voice in their head that's telling them they can't. And sometimes really all it takes is one person telling you that you can, to believe that you can.
Yes.
So, if I can be that voice myself, or if I could introduce a young woman to someone else who can be that voice, then I've done my job.
Yeah, absolutely. It really only takes that one. I can't tell you how many stories I have, and having been in education for 15 years now, and you see the students who are like, because you said this, something that as an adult, as a teacher, you're just going through the day, you're just saying, you just want to encourage people. You just say, oh, like, you're great, and moving on. But they're like, that's why I did this thing. And I was like, really? That's why you did it? Like, that's amazing. But it shows us how important our words are, and how intentional we have to be with affirming people and creating these spaces like what you're talking about with Internship Girl, spaces that allow people to see thriving is possible, that I don't have to just settle for what the surrounding community is saying, this is all you can do. No, there's possibilities beyond.
100%. I think something else I'd also really like to emphasize is I don't have a particular version of success that I want my community to chase.
Yeah.
Not a particular, I'm not a fervent advocate for the 9 to 5. I'm not, I don't think that there's a particular field that's better than another. I don't think that success equals financial, material wealth necessarily.
Yeah.
I used to kind of shirk the title of being an influencer because that started to be what I was referred to as because of the scale of my platform. But I kind of decided that I would look at it a different way, because I do feel like I'm an influencer, but my goal is not to influence people to be like me or to be any particular thing. But my goal is to influence people to know that they can do whatever it is that their heart desires. And whatever it is they feel like is their purpose. Like I always tell people, Internship Girl is topically about internships and jobs, but really it's about showing young women that their life can be meaningful and fulfilling, and that whatever they feel like wakes them up in the morning, that is important, and they should do that. And whether it's a particular, impact they want to make on the world, or it's a particular role that excites them, it's never really about the work itself. It's about all the experiences that come with it that I think are important. And so, I feel that I also have tried to stay away from some of the more modern narratives about just generally like, this is good and this is bad if you're a woman.
Right.
And I think that I've been successful at towing the line on that. because I don't ever want anyone to think that their choices aren't valid or that their way they want to live their life, the, kinds of dreams that they have, there's no literal value to them. But for me, I just want people to be able to do the things that they want to do and feel supported and empowered. So whatever it is they want to do, I'm here to, be a help, even if it doesn't look like what I do.
Yeah, yeah. What you're saying, Avalon, it resonates with words that are one of my heroes and mentors, the late great Reverend Dr. Katie Geneva Cannon. We used to always tell people that they must do the work their soul must have.
Mm,
So it's really understanding that all of us have not just occupations, because especially, your generation, my generation, the generations to come after, we're going to have many occupations, but all those occupations are tied together with a vocation, some sort of single thread that says, this was my life's work. And I think helping people discover that
yes.
is just, to your point, there's no price point you can put on.
No, there isn't. And for a lot of young women who are part of my community, work is actually a way for them to have freedom.
Yes,
And
yes.
it's a way for them maybe to leave a community that isn't supportive of them, have a
Mhm,
way to leave a home that doesn't feel safe. It's a
mhm,
way for them to define what they want their life to look like, to have some choice in a world that
mhm.
maybe doesn't give women the notion that they really have choices. And so
Right?
the simple act of saying, this is what I want and I'm going to go after it, I think bleeds
Mhm.
into all areas of a young woman's life. Like, I think when
Yeah,
I say, you want to do this, you have this particular professional goal, here's all of this personally supportive encouragement, and here's all of these professional resources. I don't believe, like I've seen it with my own eyes, that it
mm,
stops there. That feeling of support that they get and that feeling of hope, really what it is hope,
right?
transcends beyond the professional space. It creates hope
Mhm.
in just their personal life. And hope is the thing I think that keeps people really going. When you lose hope as a
Yeah.
person, there's not really much that you can do. There's very
No.
little, your days become colorless. And I think that
Right.
what I'm really providing is just a sense of hope to these young women.
No, no doubt about it. No, that hope is the fuel. There's no question about that. So tell me a bit though, like what has been the most surprising lesson, particularly about leadership during this journey? You're instructing, you're sharing, you're modeling, you're interacting. What have you learned that like surprised you? That was just like, oh, like I didn't think I was going to encounter this.
That's a fantastic question. A surprising lesson about leadership. I think that I used to be a person who felt there was a right and wrong way to do pretty much everything.
Sure.
And I still believe I am like a religious person with a very deep faith in God. And so I do
Yeah.
believe that there's a universal, like, moral truth of right and wrong.
Mhm.
But I think I used to go when I was younger and I was approaching leadership, I used to kind of go through my choices with, oh, this is like the world is going to end if I do this thing. And I'm going to judge someone who does this. And this is the right thing that I need to do. And this is the right way to communicate. Even just, I think I used to be a little more maybe oppositional. Like if someone didn't
Mhm.
understand what I was saying or disagreed with my advice or disagreed with my methods, I would just get frustrated. I would, feel
Great.
it would be on the surface, oh, I'm annoyed that they said this, but deep down, it
Yeah.
felt more like an invalidation of my perspective on the world. And I think that throughout this journey with Internship Girl, when I am communicating and serving with, women that are from literally every corner of the world with completely
Yeah.
different perspectives and completely different experiences and all different kinds of cultural, religious, political, social, educational affiliations,
Mm.
people don't always agree with what I say.
Of
People don't
course.
always see my advice as useful for their particular case. And sometimes
Mm.
my authority, or not even authority, maybe just my legitimacy as like
Right.
a young person who has had some success in their early career sometimes get questioned. And I think a few years ago I would have been offended, but now I understand the value in meeting people where they're at and
Yes.
putting my particular maybe biases about
Hmm.
where people are, where the frustration they have might be coming from to the side.
Hmm.
Biases as in like, I think I used to just feel like if someone disagreed or had questions about something I was doing, that it was just because they didn't understand. Now I have
Yeah.
more humility and I'm able to understand that maybe I just don't understand. And maybe I have some learning to do. And maybe
Yeah.
my advice isn't useful for that person. And maybe I should amend the way I communicate it. So
Yeah.
I think humility has been very big for me in this journey. And I think also when you have so many people's kind of futures, I don't want to say in my hands because obviously someone's
Sure.
future isn't just up to me, but I have the trust of so many young people to guide them
Absolutely.
appropriately. It's really made me a much more intentional and careful leader. I
No
think that
doubt.
I realized that there's a time to be bold and brave and loud and,
Hmm.
quick moving, swift. And now I realize
Yeah.
that when something is as important as this work, there's a tremendous value in just taking things a little slowly, accepting that I
Hmm.
don't know everything and doing the best I can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What you're saying, it makes me think about just the ways in which we all sort of look back at something. Sometimes for me, even as a writer, I'll look at something I wrote 3 years ago and be like, I don't agree with that anymore. I need to like amend this entirely. If you could go back in time, let's say you had a time machine for a little bit, and hopefully it's not destroying everything, right? But like you go back in time and you could have the opportunity to give your younger self a piece of advice. Like, what would you say to yourself? And you can pick the time frame, whether it's 5 years ago, a year ago, whatever it is. But what would you want to say to yourself then that you've realized now?
Another fabulous question. What advice would I give to myself? Be patient,
Mm,
stay
yes.
present.
Hear you. Hear
I
you.
think
Heard.
that as someone who has a lot of dreams, plans, hopes. When I was younger, all I wanted was the next thing. And I
Got you.
thought that when I would get that next thing, everything would be okay then. I'd finally be happy. I'd finally be
Yeah.
content. But then, of course, as soon as you get that next thing, you want the thing after that.
Real.
And I think when I was a little bit younger, I really wanted to
Mm,
just rush through the process of all of this. I wanted to
no
just
doubt.
be at the place that I envisioned myself. And I think sometimes that led to a little bit of just like unhappiness and
Mm,
in the moment, just maybe bitterness and anxiety. And when something wouldn't quite go my way, I would just be crushed because
yeah.
I would feel like that was the thing that would get me to the next thing. And now the next thing is thing.
Mm,
And would just
yes.
feel so sad. And I think now that I'm older and maybe a little bit wiser, I realize that staying present is actually the thing that is the most conducive
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
getting to a place that you're excited about in the future. Because really all you ever have is now. That's really all you ever
That's it.
have.
That's it.
And all the now moments build up to something great, but you can't
Yeah.
live in the future and
Yeah.
expect good results now. You have to see what's right in front of you. So I'd say just to stay present and would probably tell myself to have a little more just playful fun.
That's
I
it.
think that also when you're young and you're focused and you're driven and determined, everything feels very consequential. Every
No doubt about it.
single thing.
Yeah.
Especially when you have responsibilities.
Hmm.
I am completely financially independent. I have been since, I was 15. That's since I've been working. I take
That's the
care of
word.
myself. I run my own career. I run my own platform.
Right.
I'm a law student. I,
Hmm.
lived in New York City for, years for college on my own.
Right.
I
Right.
have a lot of real world responsibility. And so I think
For
because
sure.
of that, sometimes it can just make you a little bit too like stiff as a person.
Hmm.
And I would tell myself, I would go back in time and I would tell myself, Avalon, you're going to be better off if you
Yeah.
allow yourself to just enjoy the things that maybe feel a little silly.
Mhm.
Like something as simple as like the past, year, I got really into playing like card games and board games and little video
For
games. And
sure. Yeah.
when I was going through my law school process, actually, a mentor of mine was like, I think that you should try. This is such a silly story, but
Good.
my
For it.
mentor was like talking about how she played this video game, Fortnite, and I was listening to her talking about it, and I
Yes.
was like, "Oh, my brother plays that." My mentor was like, "I think that you would benefit a lot from playing Fortnite," and I,
Yeah.
"What do
Yeah.
you mean?" My mentor was like, everything in your life feels to you like it has a consequence of whether or not you win or lose. For you, the realness of winning and losing, succeeding, not succeeding is very real. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you have a lot of weight on your shoulders. And maybe it might be good for you to play a game where whether or not you win or you lose, nothing really happens. It's important in life to have that stuff. It's important in life to just you know, enjoy the non-consequential things and not always be fixated on all of the big stuff.
So how have you found with this? Because I think that's brilliant advice. And I know that when I was in seminary, for example, I would play like ultimate frisbee. I started watching professional wrestling again, like when I was a kid. I was like, I just need something to take my mind off of like the very serious stuff that I'm paying attention to all the time. And there's something about that that really promotes a sense of balance. So for you, how do you maintain your energy and your focus? How do you make sure that you have, as best as we can, live into balance, right?
Uh,
How are you maintaining that while doing all the wonderful things you do?
Thanks. I always, people ask me a lot, how do you manage your time?
Sure, sure, sure.
For me, my honest, real answer is I do what I can, when I can, and how I can.
Yeah.
If all I can do is I'm so tired, I can't go to school and sit in the library and answer emails, I'll lay on my couch and I'll answer email.
Yeah.
If
That's it.
I'm reading and I have, let's say, a 30-page reading to do and I get to page 20 and I'm like, I can't read anymore right now, I don't force myself. I close my textbook, I open it in the morning and I finish it. I have a real commitment to not harming myself in a world
Yeah.
where there's so many other things that could hurt me and
Yeah.
so many other things that can cause pain and discomfort. And I think that has been really helpful to me. I've learned the art of saying no. If I really
Mhm.
can't do something, if I really don't feel like a certain task is conducive for my well being, if I really need to, I'll say no. And that has been
Yeah.
monumental because I used to say yes to absolutely everything and everyone.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
now I
Mhm.
realize that it's far better for me to maybe do fewer things and do them really well and really intentionally than to, be a yes man and lose
Yeah.
myself a little bit in the process. But I cook a lot.
Absolutely.
I love to cook. It's a creative process for me. I sing
For
a
sure.
lot. I play piano. I
Mhm.
have my creative outlets. I spend time with friends. I make sure that I always make time in the week to spend time with friends. Of course, I
Yeah. Yeah.
speak to
Yeah.
my family every single day. And I think just having those things that are spiritually fulfilling
Yeah.
that you do every day, I pray. That's really how I find balance is just
Yeah.
kind of chasing those things that after I do them, I have the feeling of, oh, this is what life's about.
Yeah.
This is the sauce. This is what
Right.
you do everything else for. Like, it's great that I
Mhm.
have,
Mhm.
this job where I'm making this money, but now I'm sitting here at a beautiful dinner that I just cooked with the people that I love, using the money I got from the job. That's really why I'm doing
Right.
the job.
That's
And,
the point.
even like around the holidays, like being able to, come home and, give my family presents that are, meaningful and personal, and I get to do that because a brand decided to believe in my platform and, sponsor a video. Like, I have to really remind myself that this is really what it's about. It's about the people
Yeah,
you love, things you love. And I think that that helps me be balanced, just like making sure that I don't lose sight of what's important.
absolutely. I think that's so great because it really connects back to the point of like what we make a means and what we make an ends.
Mm,
And so if we're just working for the sake of working
mhm.
and not for the sake of like, no, this is the income that's going to allow me to do this activity, or I'm working toward this value that I hold, there has to be something. It can't just be labor
Yeah,
for labor's sake.
100%. Yeah. And go ahead.
No, no, no. I was gonna say like so with all of that, as you're talking to people, how do you help people? 'Cause I'm imagining you're getting like remarkably ambitious people also who are just like super driven and like I'm going to be the best in this field. How do you help them, or rather, how do you go about sharing your perspective with them? Like, or is it even that intimate of a setting? Is it still like a parasocial thing where they're watching your video, or have you had times to like really like engage with some of these people and get a sense of like their worldview and their perspective in that?
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do is I like usually once a week go through all my message requests. And I've literally
Yeah, yeah.
thousands at this point. So it's unfortunate that I can't really, I don't have the time and bandwidth
No
to answer
way.
everyone.
No way.
But
No way.
occasionally I'll, find a message from someone and I could tell that they're really earnest and they really like need some advice. They really need some words of encouragement or support. And I'll like talk to them. Like I'll DM with them. I'll send them a little voice message in the chat, answering their questions. And I have some young women in my community who have been there for a really long time who I now have these built established relationships with. And so that's really wonderful. And I love doing that. I love the personal mentorship. I think when people come to me with a very particular ambition and goal, I always preface with that I am not an expert on in particular, even though I'm giving this advice, I am still 22. I have not graduated from
True.
professional school. I just graduated from college in May.
That's real.
You
Oh
know,
goodness. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
I do this because I'm sharing what I'm learning in real time, but I'm not like
Yeah.
I'm not a trained career coach. So I try to remind people of that. And usually what I do when people have those very kind of specific goals and ambitions is try and sort of give them a general framework of the approaches that I've used that have been helpful to me in my journey. The art of saying yes to opportunities, not counting yourself out, the way, oh, my cat is making an appearance.
That's all right.
Though I try to just give more advice on mindset. And as I said earlier, I think mindset is really the biggest part. If you look at the lives of people in pretty much every field and every discipline, and you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
really find consistencies in how they approach their work and their day when they're successful. There's a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
intentionality. There might be some differences in methods, but there's a lot of intentionality. There's a lot of self belief. There's a belief in a bigger purpose or a bigger meaning behind what they're doing. So I try and touch on those themes. And I wish that I could give more specialized advice, but that goes back to my kind of humility thing is realizing what I do know and what I don't know.
That's
And I'm
it.
happy to share what I do know, but there's some things that I'm always honest. I just don't know.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. And there's a freedom in being able to say, I don't have that answer.
100%.
I think it's insecurity that makes us want to like make stuff
Yeah.
up. Be like, well, actually, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. No, that's insecurity.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And I think also I would be doing a disservice to the person I'm talking to by telling them that I know something that maybe I don't. And the great thing is the internet is a really expansive place. So I've been
For
able to
sure.
also direct people to other creators, other platforms, other resources. And that's also really rewarding. And people do the same with me. There's like a few other creators who do the kind of similar ish content to what I do. And I love
Yeah,
when I'm looking in my notifications and I see a comment from one of them and they said, you know what, I'm not sure about this, but Avalon might know. And they tag me.
yeah,
I
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
get in the habit of doing the same thing. So it's great. There's also a community amongst other young women who are interested in this kind of work that is formed because we know it doesn't just take one. It's going to take a lot of us in order to
For
actually
sure.
really, shift the tide of what young women see that they can be capable of in a real way.
Absolutely. So Avalon, as we get ready to close, I just want to ask you, how can our audience support you, support your work, support Internship Girl? How can they stay connected?
Yeah, so I you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. It's just Internship Girl. I post regularly. I greatly appreciate it when people just engage with the platform. The more people engage, whether that's a like or a share or referring to a friend, that's what helps get my educational resources out to more people.
Yeah.
Please follow me there, stay connected with me there. And I think if there's, one thing I'd love to impart on your listeners, it's that every person who is listening to this has has a real opportunity to do this work in their own lives.
Yeah.
Whether it's, mentoring a young woman in your circle who you think could use a little more encouragement, a little lifting, whether it's at your workplace, making sure that maybe there's some kind of service work that you do in the community, going even to speak at a high school or to a college class or to young women who want to do the things that you are doing. That's really
Yeah.
meaningful. And I think what I really like to encourage is also just a culture of transparency around the
Mm.
of how people get to where they're at. And so, I love talking about my journey. I love sharing information about how I've gotten to where I've gotten. And I think that the more that people are willing to share, the more hope we can instill in other young people. And
Yeah.
you give such a gift to a young person when you give them your wisdom. And so I just, you
Yeah.
can support me through following me and, engaging with my posts. But really what I care about is this mission of, helping women break through the glass floor. It's not just the glass ceiling. It's not just about when women get to these, mid to senior level positions and then they break through that final ceiling and they're all of a sudden C-suite executives.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm doing. I'm trying to get women to break through the very basic level of getting to the next step. So, take that as you will if you're listening and, are interested by the work I'm doing. And, I've found some maybe resonance in some of my words and the purpose that I have around this work and, maybe see how you can apply it in your own life.
There it is. There it is. Absolutely. Well, Avalon, thank you so much. And folks, I really hope you take a word and really find exactly where you can. Local, local, local. Find your way to make an impact with people who desperately need, as Avalon shared, an inspiration of hope and understanding the work that they're able to do and capable of doing. So thank you so much for that. Sincerely.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I always deeply appreciate a chance to share more about the work that I'm doing and this mission that I care so much about.
Of course. And friends, as always, please be sure subscribe if you haven't yet to www.baddestchaplain.com. Much love, y'all. Till next time.